Hello, good morning everyone. Hello.
भैया A very good morning to one and all present. I'm Manisha Botra, and I feel privileged to welcome you all on behalf of Population Research Center at Institute of Economic Growth to the inaugural session of Demographic Challenges in India, its current scenario and future direction on the occasion of World's Population Day. To start with, may I request our chief guest for today, Shri Manish Sisodiya ji, Deputy Chief Minister, Government of Delhi, to come on the chair. Welcome, sir. Now, I request Shri A.R. Nanda ji, former Secretary of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, to come on the stage and kindly occupy the chair on the dais. Welcome, sir. Now, I request Professor B.B. Bhattacharya, Jawaharlal Nehru University, to come and occupy the chair on the dais. Welcome, sir. Now, I request Ms. Federica Mayer, UNFPA representative, to come on the stage. Welcome, ma'am. Now I humbly request Madam Shelja Chandra, former Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and Chief Secretary Delhi, to come on the stage and occupy the chair on the dais. Welcome, ma'am. Now I request a director, Professor Manoj Panda, to come on the stage and occupy the chair on the dais. Welcome, sir. Lastly, I request Mr. Suresh Sharma, Organizing Secretary of the seminar, to come on the stage. I now request a director, Professor Manoj Panda, to welcome our chief guest for today, Mr. Manish Sisodiya. Shri Manish Sisodiya is a Deputy Chief Minister, Government of Delhi. And thank you, sir. You found time amidst your multifarious occupations and travels to be with us this morning. Welcome, sir. Now I request our director to welcome Professor B.B. Bhattacharya. Sir was a former Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University and former director of our institute. He was also the president of Indian Economic Association, Indian Econometric Society, and Indian Association of Research on National Income and Wealth. I now request a director to present a bouquet to our honorable guest, Shri A.R. Nanda ji. Sir was a former Secretary of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. He also served as an Executive Director at Population Foundation of India. Shri Nandaji has been actively involved with the Sai movement and he's devoted to Shirdi Sai Baba. Welcome, sir. It's a privilege for us to have you here. I further request a director to present a bouquet to Ms. Federica Mayer. Federica Mayer is a UNFPA representative for India, country director for Bhutan. Prior to this, Federica ma'am was the regional representative for an international NGO in development cooperation covering Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Pakistan. And ma'am was responsible for the establishment of offices in all these countries. Welcome, ma'am. Now I request a director to welcome Madam Shelja Chandra with a bouquet. Shelja ma'am is a retired IS officer who served our country for more than 3 decades. She is the former secretary in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and Chief Secretary Delhi. She is a well-known writer and a TV panelist and an independent policy analyst of governance, health, women empowerment, and many other fields. May I now humbly request our organizer of the seminar, Dr. Suresh Sharma, to kindly welcome our director, Professor Manoj Panda, and greet him with a bouquet. And reversing the order, may I now request our director, Professor Manoj Panda, to welcome Dr. Suresh Sharma. Sir is the organizing secretary of the seminar and has been actively involved in the areas of demography from past 21 years. Ladies and gentlemen, light leads us from darkness to brightness, symbolizing a move from ignorance to knowledge. This is precisely the aim of the seminar, to give you more knowledge and insight on the topic demographic challenges in India. Hence, I now request all the dignitaries on the dais to light the lamp and brighten our seminar. Clap. Thank you, sir and ma'am. Now, I request Professor B.B. Bhattacharya to chair and conduct the session further.
Okay. Oh, yes. To remind everybody for time. Director to chair. Good morning to all of you, though it is a very rainy day, but not bad, considering that badly short of rains this year. Sri Manish Sisodia ji, the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi State, welcome to you, sir. As I says, I belong to this campus. This is my institute. Nandaji is an old friend of institute. I remember several times he used to come. Several times we've interacted. So I'm very happy that
I was a student here in 1974,
Oh,
2 months.
for that this course in the investment planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Srimati Shailaja Chandra, Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Miss Frederica Mayer, you said you are familiar with Delhi for 15 years. So I suppose you must have visited this campus.
Unfortunately, it's the first time.
Oh, okay. Welcome. Welcome in that case. Well, my old colleagues and friends, it gives me a great pleasure, first of all, to come, and more important, to know that this important seminar on demographic challenges in India would be conducted by the Population Research Center of the Institute. Demography, I'm not an expert, so I don't intend to say anything. Being an economist, we have been concerned, how do we convert India's demography into what popularly called demography dividend? The youngest aged population of the world, but that requires investment in human capital. Otherwise, mere number of population as such does not become an asset. It could become a liability. I'm happy to know, at least from the newspaper, say Manish Sisodia's government is taking initiative, spending more on Delhi's health and education. It's a good lead. I hope all the states all over the country take such lead. We are one of the unfortunately worst spender on health and education in the world. So let's hope that this seminar, you will be discussing threadbare all the critical issues relating to India's demographic challenges. Of course, this is not the only problem. There are age problems, aging, problems of the gender, and varieties of other problems. So I need not waste your time. Let me now straight away request Professor Manoj Panda, the director, to give his inaugural comments.
Honorable Deputy Chief Minister Sisodia ji, Professor Bhattacharya, distinguished civil servants or former civil servants, Mr. Nanda, Ms. Chandra, UNFPA representative, Ms. Mayor, Professor Sharma, distinguished guests and colleagues. It is indeed a pleasure for me to welcome you all to this conference on demographic challenges in India. This conference is being held against the background of the World Population Day. And this is an occasion to make an assessment of where the world is heading on the population landscape, and especially focusing on our country. As you know, the demographic landscape in the last 5 or 6 decades, it has changed dramatically, both at the global level as well as in the country. The size of the population itself is an indication. It is 4 times or so more in the global level as well as in India than what it was at the turn of last century. Particularly in the last 5 or 6 decades, the population has increased at a very rapid rate. There are debates earlier on whether rising population works to the advantage or disadvantage of the country. But now we know that possibly debate is not so much about that, but about how to engage the people, as the chairman was telling. How to, if we are talking of demographic dividends, how to make productive use of these resources. But that is only one dimension. The other dimension is, as the population grows, we have a larger population in the old age group. How do we maintain social security for them? So these are possibly some, on the demographic age structure, these are some of the questions that is coming up. But at the same time, there are other issues on health, education, and also I'll say that the financing of some of these programs, that's also becoming a big issue and as the economy changes, the economic policy change. If the economic policy framework changing, possibly we have to change the framework of service delivery also and make an assessment of some of those issues. These are some of the challenges that we see. There are, of course, other challenges of specific diseases, the mortality rates, on which again the IG has been quite active on some of these issues. And I would like to thank Professor Sharma for organizing this seminar, and I'm grateful to the Deputy Chief Minister as well as other distinguished guests for coming here, and we do hope, sir, that you would come again. And I would request the Population Research Center at the Institute to organize more of such seminars in the coming days. Last year they had very productive seminars on several occasions, and I hope as we enter the new academic year from this month, I hope that this year also we'll see several of such conferences and seminars. Thank you.
May I now request Dr. Suresh Sharma of the PRC, who is the organizer of the seminar, to elaborate on the seminar concept and the seminar program itself.
Thank you, sir, for your kind permission. I will extend my warm welcome and regard to our distinguished guest, Honorable Deputy CM Sri Manish Sisodia ji, Professor B.V. Bhattacharya ji, former Vice Chancellor of JNU and former Director of IG, and Sri A.R. Nanda ji, former Secretary of Ministry Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Madam Selja Chandra, former Secretary in Ministry Health and Family Welfare and Chief Secretary, Delhi Government, and ex-Executive Director, Jansankhya Sthirta Kosh, and Madam Federica Mayer, UNFPA representative, and Professor Manoj Panda, Director of IG. I am thankful to all the distinguished speakers, invited participants, and young researchers who have kindly agreed to participate in this seminar. India is facing major issue in provision of basic necessity and providing minimum standard of living to growing population. All the major problems faced in India like poverty, gender inequality, and malnutrition and social and cultural issues are linked with population either directly or indirectly. Recently, our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji gave an influencing slogan, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, highlighting the ability of young population to come together and contributed in development of India. Today, on the occasion of Bird Population Day, it's an attempt our firm side highlight the both benefit and challenges to India from its growing population. Bird population is being celebrated globally in 11th July. It is introduced to alert to the public when globally public nearly about the 5 million at 11th July in the year of 1987. Population around globally had reached 7 million in the year of 2011, which had widely ranging implication on the overall growth and development. Being a demographer and vice president of ISP and associate with various issues related to demography so many years, I take this opportunity to organize seminar on the occasion of Bird Population Day, bringing together all the government officials, experts in the field of young scholars to share their valuable experience, comments, and opinion. Therefore, my colleagues Manisha and I thought planning a seminar to bring in academicians, policymakers, and young researchers to narrow this gap, promote evidence-based analysis, and review demographic challenges in India, its current and scenario and future direction. With this idea, we approached to our director, Professor Manoj Panda, who encouraged and support to conduct this seminar. Later, we have received financial support from ICSR, and we are grateful to them. The primary objective of seminar to bringing together all the researchers and policymakers to share their critical view and research findings, demographic challenges in India. Overall, for the seminar, we have planned 2 plenary sessions and 3 technical sessions on the key policy areas such as population growth targets, demographic scenario and challenges, Millennium Development Goal achievement and challenges, addressing gender-based issues, urbanization, migration and development, aging population. Looking forward, healthy discussion these key issues, and I hope all the participants will contribute and share valuable experience in the following sessions. Once again, I would like to thank all the participants for the sparing valuable time for this seminar. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. I'll now request the Honorable Chief Guest, Sri Manish Sisodia ji, to release the report and say a few words.
सामने रखो एक
I'm delighted that today on this special occasion, PRC department is launching its report titled Evaluation of Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram in Delhi.
Yes.
Respected Chair, hello. Respected Chair, मंच पे बैठे और तमाम विद्वान, मंच के सामने बैठे तमाम विद्वान और तमाम रिसर्चर साथी। अभी 3 दिन पहले मैं हिंदी में बोलूंगा क्योंकि मैं हिंदी में सोचता हूँ। आई होप
हाँ, no problem, no problem.
barring one, others can understand what I'm saying.
Yes, yes.
And I was saying I'll speak in Hindi because I think in Hindi. So, 3 दिन पहले मेरे ऑफिस सेक्रेटरी ने मुझे बताया कि इस तरह से एक सेमिनार है जिसमें मुझे बुलाने के लिए आदरणीय शर्मा जी और बाकी साथी अनुरोध कर रहे हैं लगातार। तो उन्होंने पेपर्स भेजे थे, मैंने पूछा सेमिनार किस बारे में है, तो उन्होंने बताया डेमोग्राफिक चैलेंजेस इन इंडिया ऑन वर्ल्ड पॉपुलेशन डे पर है। तो मैंने सोचा और फिर मैंने थोड़ा पेपर्स देखे कि क्या है, तो देखा पॉलिसी मेकर्स, रिसर्चर्स, इन सबको बुलाया है, इन सब का सेमिनार है। तो आई थॉट कि पॉलिसी मेकर तो हूँ मैं, बट मेरे से आगे चेन में इस सब्जेक्ट के और पॉलिसी मेकर्स हैं। देयर इज अ हेल्थ डिपार्टमेंट, देयर इज अ फैमिली प्लानिंग डिपार्टमेंट, उन लोगों को जाना चाहिए। फिर रिसर्चर आई एम नॉट। फिर एक और शब्द मुझे दिखा अपने बारे में इस डॉक्यूमेंट में, स्टेक होल्डर। तब मुझे थोड़ा सा कॉन्फिडेंस हुआ कि यस, एज एन स्टेक होल्डर आई डिजर्व टू बी देयर, आई हैव ए राइट टू बी देयर। तो इसलिए मैं यहाँ हूँ क्योंकि शैलजा जी रही हैं वहाँ उस सचिवालय में, इन्होंने उसको खड़ा किया है। वहाँ समझ सकती हैं कि दिल्ली में 6 मंत्रियों के बीच में 6+1 सारे डिपार्टमेंट्स को चलाने में कितनी व्यवस्था रहती है, और उसी व्यवस्था में से अचानक इस सब्जेक्ट के लिए भी, इस ज़रूरी सब्जेक्ट के लिए समय निकालना। और फिर भी मैंने सोचा कि जब इतना अनुरोध है, इतना आग्रह है, तो 10-15 मिनट निकाल के चलना चाहिए और कुछ समझना चाहिए। मैं इस बात इसलिए कह रहा हूँ क्योंकि जब मैं ओपनिंग एड्रेस के बाद यहाँ से जाऊँ तो आप लोगों की अपेक्षा ठीक ठीक रहे मेरे से। आप लोग ये ना सोचें कि ये आदमी बोल के क्या गया, हमारा सेमिनार किस विषय पे है और ये क्या बोल गया। तो इसलिए ज़रूरी है बताना कि मेरा इस सब्जेक्ट पे कोई पकड़ नहीं है, और मैं एक्चुअल में इस सब्जेक्ट का पॉलिसी मेकर डायरेक्टली नहीं हूँ, इनडायरेक्टली तो खैर जब व्हेन आई एम इनटू पॉलिसी मेकिंग टीम तो आई एम ऑलवेज इन्वॉल्व, लेकिन मैं डायरेक्टली इस सब्जेक्ट पे पॉलिसी मेकर भी नहीं हूँ। पर फिर भी क्योंकि ये विषय मेरी ज़िंदगी से भी जुड़ा हुआ है, इसलिए मैं यहाँ हूँ, और मैंने इसलिए यहाँ आना स्वीकार किया, इसलिए ज़रूरी समझा। और इस विषय पे काम की बात आप लोग दिन भर करेंगे, पूरे सेमिनार में करेंगे। मैं कुछ अपने दिल की बात कह देता हूँ, मन की भी है, दिल की भी है, ऐसा ना सोचे मन की बात नहीं है, मन की बात, दिल की बात दोनों कह देता हूँ। मैं ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ द सेमिनार देख रहा था, उसमें बात थी पॉपुलेशन इश्यूज लाइक इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ फैमिली प्लानिंग, जेंडर इक्वलिटी और पॉवर्टी, ह्यूमन राइट्स, राइट टू हेल्थ, ये सारे हैं आपके। फैमिली प्लानिंग एक ऐसा विषय है जिसको लेके हम काफ़ी चर्चा करते हैं, और पॉपुलेशन को लेके इसके इर्द गिर्द हमारी सारी सोच घूमती है। एज ए सिटीजन मैं सोचता हूँ कि क्या अभी हम, जब से हमने इस देश में फैमिली प्लानिंग पे बात करनी शुरू की है, क्या हम फैमिली प्लानिंग का मतलब भी समझा पाए लोगों को? क्या हम इस स्थिति में हैं कि देश में, और मैं जो बाय डेस्टिनी अनपढ़ रह गए, जो पढ़ लिख नहीं पाए, उनकी बात ही नहीं कर रहा, मैं उनकी बात कर रहा हूं जिन्होंने अपने 20-20 साल एजुकेशन को देने के बाद इस समाज में जीना स्वीकार किया है। पूरी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैक्ट्री से निकल के आए हैं 20 साल के, आई एम यूजिंग दिस वर्ड डेलिबरेटली। 20-20 साल एजुकेशन में बिताने के बाद फिर जब जीना शुरू करते हैं, मैं उसके बाद जी रहे लोगों की बात करता हूँ। क्या फैमिली प्लानिंग समझ में आया हुआ है? माफ कीजिएगा, लेकिन समाज में जिस पॉपुलेशन की हम बात कर रहे हैं वो फैमिली प्लानिंग से नहीं आई दिखती, वो फैमिली एक्सीडेंट से आई दिखती है। हमारे कितने बर्थ्स एक्सीडेंटल होते हैं और कितने प्लान्ड होते हैं, अगर वहां हम ध्यान ही नहीं दे पाएंगे तो फिर फैमिली प्लानिंग की ओर ध्यान नहीं आएगा। एकदम कोर में जाके समझना, सोचने की जरूरत है कि एक बच्चा, आई एम अगेन सेइंग कि आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट द पीपल हु बाय डेस्टिनी हैव बीन अनएजुकेटेड। हम 20 साल की एजुकेशन देते हैं, उसके बाद वो मैनेजमेंट प्लानिंग सीख जाता है। वो बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियां जो घाटे में चलती हैं, उनको प्लानिंग के तहत कैसे घाटे से उबारा जाए उसको आता है। एक लैपटॉप रखा है, ये वाला डिजाइन फेल हो जाएगा, इस डिजाइन को ठीक करके कैसे बढ़िया वाला डिजाइन मार्केट में लॉन्च किया जाए जिससे प्रॉफिट भी हो और सॉफ्टवेयर टेक्नोलॉजी भी आगे बढ़ जाए, सब कुछ प्लानिंग आती है। लेकिन उस 20 साल की एजुकेशन में वो फैमिली प्लानिंग शामिल नहीं है। जिस फैमिली में उसको जिंदा रहना है, जिस फैमिली में उसको जीना है, उसमें फैमिली प्लानिंग शामिल है। क्योंकि फैमिली प्लानिंग को हमने एक पॉपुलेशन से जोड़ दिया, फैमिली प्लानिंग को हमने एक सेक्सुअल एक्टिविटी से जोड़ दिया। फैमिली प्लानिंग जिंदगी जीने के लिए पूरी एंटायरिटी, टोटलिटी, 360 डिग्री ऑफ लाइफ के लिए कितना जरूरी है वो हम भूल गए। और यही हमारा अपराध, बिकॉज बीइंग एन एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर आई कैन एक्सेप्ट कि यही हमारा अपराध एजुकेशन से हो गया कि हम इंजीनियर्स बनाने लगे, हम डॉक्टर्स बनाने लगे, हम मैनेजर्स बनाने लगे, हम एडवोकेट जर्नलिस्ट बनाने लगे, हम आईएएस बनाने लगे। हमने फैमिली मेंबर्स नहीं बनाए। और फैमिली मेंबर नहीं बनने का अपराध यह है कि देयर इज नो फैमिली प्लानिंग, देयर इज नो जेंडर इक्विटी, देयर इज नो जेंडर सेंसिटाइजेशन। बहुत बेसिक गलतियां हुई हैं, वहां से ठीक करना पड़ेगा। आप लोग रिसर्च कर रहे हैं, इस रिसर्च में इन चीजों को जरूर शामिल कीजिएगा कि 20 साल के आदमी की समझ और एक अनपढ़ आदमी की समझ, दोनों में फैमिली प्लानिंग में कितना अंतर है। 20 साल का आदमी रिसोर्सेज की कमी के कारण फैमिली प्लानिंग करता है, या अपनी रिसोर्सेज की कमी उसको समझ आ गई है कि रिसोर्सेज की कमी है इसलिए फैमिली प्लानिंग करता है, या प्लानिंग के तहत कुछ प्लानिंग करता है। गिवन ए चॉइस, वो कितनी प्लानिंग करना चाहेगा एक बार रिसर्च करके देखिए। क्योंकि 20 साल तो हमने वेस्ट कर दिए, और 20 साल वेस्ट करने के बाद जो आदमी बचा है फिर उसके पास समझ नहीं, उसको डरा दिया गया है। 2 से ज्यादा बच्चे पैदा करोगे तो पढ़ाओगे कैसे, धरती छोटी पड़ जाएगी। ऐसे काम नहीं होता है, ऐसे डर से कभी कोई नहीं सीखता है। आपको टोटलिटी में सिखाना पड़ेगा, यू आर पार्ट ऑफ अ लार्जर थिंग, उसमें सिखाना पड़ेगा। आप करिएगा इस पे, मैं उम्मीद करूंगा कि आपके रिसर्च टॉपिक्स में ये चीज शामिल हो, और ये भी शामिल हो कि जब हम जेंडर इक्विटी की बात, बिकॉज यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट डेमोग्राफिक चेंजेस, जेंडर इक्विटी की बात कर रहे हैं आप, विमेन सिक्योरिटी, विमेन सेफ्टी की बात कर रहे हैं। हम जेंडर इक्विटी की बात कैसे कर सकते हैं? अगेन आई एम कमिंग टू वन, आई एम जस्ट गिविंग यू स्मॉल एग्जांपल्स हाउ व्हाट काइंड ऑफ ब्लंडर्स वी आर मेकिंग इन आवर एजुकेशन व्हेन वी प्लान फॉर अ सिटीजन। हमारी सिटीजन प्लानिंग फेल हो गई तो फैमिली प्लानिंग फेल होगी। हमारा एक छोटे से बच्चे की क्लास में एक शब्द आता है, अपोजिट वर्ड्स। आप सब लोगों ने भी, हम लोगों ने भी पढ़ा था, और उसमें हमें पढ़ाया जाता है डे का अपोजिट क्या हो गया, साफ सुन गया, नाइट। सिखाया नहीं? सीखा ना? डे का अपोजिट नाइट, स्काई का अपोजिट अर्थ, विमेन का अपोजिट मैन का अपोजिट। ये मैन और विमेन एक दूसरे के अपोजिट है कि एक दूसरे के कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री है? एग्जिस्टेंस में एक परिवार में भाई बहन हो, पति पत्नी हो, माता पिता हो, कुछ भी हो, वो एक दूसरे का अपोजिट है या एक दूसरे के कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री है? फिर अपोजिट क्यों सिखा रहे थे? अपोजिट की सेंस हमको नहीं पता थी, हमें कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री की सेंस नहीं पता थी। कुछ मूर्खताएं करते हुए हमने उनको बच्चों को सिखा दिया ये अपोजिट होता है, और पूरी आप देखिए कहां बेसिक क्लास 1, 2, 3 में आता है, और वहां से इतना बड़ा अपराध कर दिया। उसके बाद आप उसको डेमोग्राफिक चैलेंजेस पढ़ाते रहिए, उसके दिमाग में बचपन में तो आपने घुसा दिया अपोजिट होता है। आप फिर कहेंगे जेंडर इक्वलिटी। अपोजिट लोगों के बीच में इक्वलिटी कैसे हो सकती है, मुझे समझा दीजिए। आप अपोजिट सिखाते हैं और फिर इक्वलिटी पे रिसर्च करते हैं, माफ कीजिएगा ये काम चलेगा नहीं। तो इस दिशा में थोड़ा सा सोचा जाए। पॉलिसी मेकर्स भी सोचें, पॉलिसी मेकर्स से पहले ऑफ कोर्स रिसर्चर्स को सोचना पड़ेगा। आप लोग रिसर्च करके देंगे, आप लोग चैलेंज करेंगे कन्वेंशनल मेथड्स ऑफ थिंकिंग, कन्वेंशनल मेथड्स ऑफ एजुकेशन को, कन्वेंशनल मेथड्स ऑफ लाइफस्टाइल को, तब जाके पॉलिसी मेकर्स की कहीं आँख खुलेगी, अगर खुली तो, नहीं तो फिर आप लोग पॉलिसी मेकर बन जाना, बेस्ट वे। तो मैं आप सब लोगों को बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूँ कि आपने इस महत्वपूर्ण विषय पर, जो जिंदगी के लिए इतना ज़रूरी है, इस पर ये चर्चा आयोजित की और मुझे यहाँ बोलने का मौका दिया, मुझे अपनी बात रखने का मौका दिया। और मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि इस सेमिनार से निकली हुई चीज़ें, जैसे एक रिपोर्ट के रूप में अभी मैं थोड़ा सा पन्ना पलट के देख रहा था, काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग डेटा उसमें दिखाई दे रहा था, उसी तरह का कुछ और इंटरेस्टिंग डेटा इस सेमिनार के बाद कुछ दिखाई देगा, जिससे मुझे, मेरे तमाम साथियों को, मेरी सरकार को और फिर हम सब दिल्ली वासियों को जीने में मदद करने में कामयाब होगा। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
धन्यवाद सिसोदिया जी। आपने एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात कहा है, जेंडर इक्वलिटी तभी होगा अगर वो बराबर अपने को एक हिस्सा में जोड़ दिया जाए। बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है। मुझे सबसे अच्छा लगा कि आप इस सेमिनार में आने के पहले सेमिनार के बारे में थोड़ा ध्यान दिया है, क्योंकि मैं तो बहुत सिर्फ काफी हो चुका है मेरा, बहुत सारे मिनिस्टर लोग आते हैं स्पीच लेके, जिसके साथ सेमिनार का कोई संबंध नहीं होता है, अपने मन की बात बता के चले जाते हैं, सेमिनार चाहे कुछ भी हो। आपको बधाई हो, इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ में आके आपने इंपॉर्टेंस दिया है। मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि आप लोगों की लीडरशिप में जो आपने बात कही है उसके बारे में एक्शन फ्रंट में, और उस एक्शन फ्रंट में आप रिसर्चर को अपनी साथी बनाइए। एक तो होता है पॉलिसी ऊपर से, और एक होता है रिसर्चर को लेके जागरूकता करना, फिर मीडिया में चर्चा होगा, लोगों के मन में जागरूकता आएगा। तो मुझे लगता है कि आप कुछ इस तरह से इनिशिएटिव लेंगे तो जो आपने कहा है वो सही तरह से इम्प्लीमेंट होगा। धन्यवाद। Now let me request Mr. Nanda, the real expert among us, one of the real experts among us on the topic itself. Nanda.
शर्मा साहब, मैं निकलना चाहूँगा because there are so
Okay, अच्छा ठीक है।
So before you go, we want to present a memento of thank you to you. It was a privilege to have you here, sir, and your speech was really motivating. We'll definitely research on it. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause.
These chairs are very heavy. Yes. I don't know how from smoking is not permitted. Oh, yes, yes. No, it is easy. It's a bit easy, yes.
So, respected Chairperson, our friends on the dais and also in the room, I am really beholden to many of the expert, experienced demographers. And I always say that I did receive my training in demography from them more than I received it in abroad when I went there to study population. And I was also a student of the Institute of Economic Growth for 2 months on planning and investment planning. That is when I was in charge of the planning ministry. So it's a good homecoming back when I come to this institute. I see the students and the faculty and others. I remember those days. In 1974, that was quite a long time back. Let me first tell you, I am really pleasantly surprised. It is a very pleasant surprise. For the first time in perhaps since 1965, when I joined and the National Family Planning Program was coming to a particular strategization, 65, 66, those who have read the history of family planning in India, started in 52, 53, and 65, 66 was a watershed. That is when the myths took over, the misconceptions took over, thanks to the international lobby and also the national lobby, to treat population as a liability. And the population explosion was in the minds of everyone. So since then, for the first time I've heard, it's such a pleasant surprise, the minister, Sisodia ji, speaking in a different voice. I'm very happy. I'm sure that the younger generation will look at population in this way. This is what in China, way back in 1953-54, Mao Zedong has considered population in the same way. I'm seeing an Indian politician speaking in the same way. Population as the asset, potentially, and also saying how family planning and population issue has to be ingrained in the minds of people. So I am not getting into this, this is a thing, but since, you see, this is the classical versus ICPD. ICPD is the International Conference Population Development, completely paradigm shift. Unfortunately, the ambivalence still persists in the minds of intellectuals, academia, research, policymakers, politicians. Today, I am finding a change, both from the Institute of Economic Growth, director, and also Professor Pataria, everybody speaking a different voice. It's such a welcome thing. Basically, these two mindsets, one leading to myths and misconceptions, and the other to the reality of what population, what the minister said. So naturally, there are two pathways to solve the so-called population and go for either a population control mindset, authoritarian, or on a cooperative family planning, cooperative population stabilization. The goals and strategies differ. I'm not denouncing the demographic targets, but demographic targets are just one type of targets. There are many other things, and that's where population and development really matter, and that's the concept. So I have a 12-point agenda. Since the time is short, I will not go much into this. All these I'm not going. This you will, today, I think a lot of discussion will be there on the story of transition. Again, demographic transition can be looked at two pathways. One is the normal demographic transition being interpreted in the way of the higher fertility and fertility coming to the middle and all that, and then lower. That is one way. That's only a very mechanistic way. The other is the real story of population and development, people, how it goes. The interrelationship and intertwining of factors, I don't have to get into that. Issues of rights and gender are very, very, they have to be upfront, be there, and that's what the minister said. Development and governance are very important policy imperatives. Intersectoral synergy and convergence is the key. Current population development challenges. There is demographic dividend is one of the challenges of achieving that versus disaster, you call it. But I don't call it a disaster. That's again a fall out of the style of development, the style of development. Equity, rights, and empowerment will remain the key words. So liability and assets had to be set at rest. Our population, the asset, we should be proud of the fact that we will be the biggest population in the world. We will be the most powerful nation in the world. And that's what we have to say. We have to see how the family reaps, the poorest of the poor reaps the dividend. The future direction, there are alternative pathways. So you have to choose which pathway. Unfortunately, with due regards, I am part of government, the government is still, that equivocation, that sort of thing is there, contradicts. In many areas, I don't have time to say. You see, you are still speaking the old language of population control. Locally, you are not empowering. You have the policy convergence versus scattered ad hocism. The scattered ad hoc policy and strategies are holding sway over policy convergence. And aging, dependency, fertility decline, I'm happy that these problems are being flagged. And these should be flagged. Let us relook with changed lens of reality, be vigilant and proactive, and empower the community to face the future. In this connection, I will quickly tell a 12-point agenda. The first is the seed has to be sown. And this is what the minister said. Our education system has to take into account a curricula of population and development, the modules, the course content in schools, right from the primary schools to secondary school, colleges and universities. Unfortunately, it has to go a long way. It is not in the same language. Unfortunately, I don't blame who is doing that, but that old mindset, that old neo-Malthusian mindset is prevalent. Second, we must revisit population studies in India, the demographic courses. I have seen in institutes abroad that things have changed. It has become interdisciplinary. I went through a course, what is called demology, not demography. They called, you are studying demology, a new coin. So it is like psychology, or it is like geology and geography. You are studying geography only surface. Geology you are getting in. So it is demology, you are getting into population development, the heart and minds of the people. So that is demology. Intensive reorientation and training of academia, bureaucracy, legislators, program leaders in the paradigm shift. It's a must. It is being done just ad hoc manner. The next is research. Research has to be interdisciplinary. And I'm sure the Population Research Center here and other research centers have to take a lead in interdisciplinary research. Evidence building through that. Next is policy. Now, policy advocacy in sustained manner. And here, as academics, as research, and as others, you have to do it on a rights-based lens and a gender-sensitive lens at all levels, whether it is the auxiliary nurse midwife or the ASA worker or the Prime Minister of India. I think that advocacy, policy advocacy is a must. But that has to be backed by policy analysis and monitoring studies. And that is where I think we have a role. These have to be done concurrently for feedback of what is happening to the policy every day, every month, every year. Exposing the myths and misconceptions, exposing these deviations in full public domain. You have to bring it in the press and all that. Then comes population program strategy, programming. The monitoring has to be done, periodic scrutiny by committees, and these committees with members committed to population and development philosophy, not population control philosophy, population development philosophy to human rights, dignity, gender, quality of women's health, and reproductive rights, all these issues. Regular assessments at local community level with participatory two-way dialogue, consultation, counseling with follow-up of the women and families' needs, especially of the poor and marginalized, and annual work plans. This is nothing new. This is very much there as a part of the national population policy and the reproductive child health and also the national health mission. unfortunately, this is not being implemented in the spirit in which it has to be done. Then there are certain norms that have to be advocated. One has to say completely no, no, no to top-down, take it or leave it approach by service providers. No question of a top-down targets of contraceptive being put. Say reject it. Say no. You have other alternative of preparing your accountability. No to the camp approach with family planning, particularly sterilization of women. You know what sort of disasters are happening year after year. But despite all our advocacy, again they are resorting to the same thing, because you have to, I think there is some advice that unless you sterilize women, you are going to go doomsday. So if you have to sterilize, do it as if your own wife or your sister is doing it, is the patient. Quality of care should be the sine qua non and mandatory. It's not the demographic targets of bringing down the total fertility rate. That's very immaterial. We are anyway going inexorably towards that. 2.1 will reach by 2019 or 20, and we are going to have stabilized population in another 40 years. But that is not important. Important is quality of care, particularly to women, the marginalized. Internalize counseling on gender and reproductive rights along with male involvement is the key. The myths of masculinity and patriarchy to be busted all over. That needs a movement, people's movement. And I am coming to the last 2, 3, Mr. Chairperson, sorry.
No, please carry on. Please
prioritize comprehensive population education and adolescent reproductive sexual health education as core curriculum of adolescent girls and boys, and also the peers, parents, and teachers. This is already some initiative has been taken. UNFPA is there, you will hear more about that. That is the real thing. And here, resilience. How does a village girl, from the tribal community, from the poorer community, can develop resilience? Resilience is not only physical, mental, emotional, everything. Resilience and self-confidence. There are stories, there are many pilots which have been done. Let's try to scale it up, and that is what is wanted. Then a life cycle approach to women's health and family planning. It has to be a life cycle approach. I'm very happy the minister has hit it in the head. And that will envisage nutrition, which is very important. I don't have to get into the reports of nutrition, undernutrition or malnutrition. Post-reproductive health is very important. We are having now post-reproductive health, particularly of men and women, both, but women. And elderly needs to be tackled. And we must have a plan for that. We shouldn't consider anymore only, contraceptive sterilization, as if that is the year in and year out the government is doing. I think the family planning division should be abolished in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. They should have a division for population and development. The Jansankhya Sthirata course, with due regards, have to be attuned to this new philosophy. Then skill building, appropriate skill building for reaping the demographic dividend. Some steps have been already taken, but I think that I'm coming to the last 2 points, very important points. That is skewed sex ratio at birth. And I have been taking this view that population stabilization can take another 100 years, doesn't matter. If we become, instead of 150 crores, we become 200 crores. But what matters is the skewed sex ratio at birth. And that's why we should not do those things which are incongruous with this, because that is end of our society. No quick fix solutions for population control or fertility reduction or for contraceptives. No 2-child, 1-child norm. Abolish it. Advocate for that. It is not necessary. Paradigm shift from centralized top-down management style of governance and move forward to real decentralization delegation, people's participation, and preparing village plans, block plans, district plans for population and development, which is intersectoral, these integrated plan, and no verticalized plan. Population program will be better implemented with transparency and accountability at all levels. If people are involved, it becomes a people's program, it becomes a people's problem. So what Amartya Sen had said, it will be a cooperative population stabilization rather than an authoritarian population stabilization. Say no to incentives and disincentives. They are counterproductive, they are unethical, they may achieve some results initially, but they are very unethical and they are eating course of our heart and our mind. So with these words, let me say that these are my initial remarks. I am not be here for the end day, but thank you very much. I think we are breathing a fresh air. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri Nandaji. I am very happy to know that with your long experience, you have been still reflecting on the subject and coming up still with new and fresh ideas, which will be very useful for other youngsters to carry on research. I am particularly very pleased to hear you mention that family planning department be abolished. I've been advocating myself in my, of course, layman's talk that department should have been abolished. Money saved for that should have been exclusively spent on girls' education. That would have attained much better results in not only population control, quality of the women's life, as well as their children's life. So I hope with views expressed from people like you, at some stage, we may see the actions following from that. Well, the next speaker is equally very learned and experienced on the subject, Srimati Shailaja Chandra.
Chairman of this plenary session, Professor Bhattacharya, all the dignitaries on the dais, and my old colleague, Mr. Nanda, all the people who have helped me with endless information, which I keep, even today, ferreting for. They're all sitting in the front row. And of course, the faculty and students at IEG. I don't think I want to give a philosophical lecture today. I think it is time that one looked at the reality of what is happening, congratulate ourselves for some great achievements, but also realize that everything to do with women, women's bodies, women's reproductive health, and women's production of children is ultimately related to what tools you give them and their husbands. Contraception may be something you can wish away on a larger philosophical plane, but it is something which every country in the world which has progressed was able to master and was able to deliver, and that is how development took place. And I don't feel bad about giving you a small historical account, no slides at all, I promise you, because I have seen it as a bystander, as a participant, and as a person who is totally involved directly. As Mr. Nanda rightly said, 65-66 was a watershed because the family planning program was about 14, 15 years old, and all that we heard was bring down the number of children to 2. And that became a slogan and was something which was integral to every film you saw, every department of the government of India, every department of state governments only went on and on with do bacche, hamare do bacche, and that's it. And women were just pushed into sterilization as the be-all and the end-all. Any other form of family planning or welfare was something which wasn't spoken about at all. There were skits about women unable to catch the bus because they had 7 children. So that was the kind of atmosphere one dealt with. I was also very closely associated with the emergency because I was in charge of the Home Department and MISA detentions right through the emergency in the Delhi government. I was not in family planning or in the health sector, but my very close associate, friend, colleague was the secretary in charge of health and family welfare. And she used to, as was her wont, finish her work and come to my room. And I had to hear how many targets had to be kept up because Mr. Sanjay Gandhi wanted the vasectomy figures to just go up. Horrendous stories came from all over the country about how people were being vasectomized, young people, elderly people, anyone. And the Director of Education of the government of Delhi became an IAS officer because he was able to vasectomize the largest number of people. So that was the atmosphere that prevailed in the 70s. After that, when the emergency was over, of course, there was a backlash, a tremendous backlash. No political party agreed to even talk of population. It was put firmly on the back burner, except for that department called the Department of Family Planning or whatever, where all the joint secretaries ran around chasing targets, getting after the state governments, writing DO letters, how many condoms used, how many IUDs distributed, how many pills distributed, and that was the be-all and the end-all of the family planning program. Very, very shabbily executed, and I was then very much the health secretary in Delhi, and I knew very well that this was a sham. I got a few studies done of Delhi, and I said, go to the homes where all this has been distributed or any kind of a family planning effort other than sterilization done. And they said these homes don't even exist. So the whole thing was a sham. If that was so in Delhi, you can imagine how much it must have been throughout the country. There was an awakening by 1994 when ICPD came, and you know what ICPD stands for. And we became a signatory to that, and a target-free approach was adopted by the government at a policy level. But obviously, the way bureaucracy runs, you may say it is target-free, but all that you did was to call it by some other name. But you went on following that trajectory, trying to get the you might say the child survival, safe motherhood, nothing wrong with that. They were very important. The trajectory changed to reproductive and child health, and where sexual, you might say STIs, RTIs, all became something that was talked about. Of course, the AIDS control program also emerged around those years, and because of that, there was open talk of the use of condoms and sexual health. So in a way, there was a kind of change in dimension, but at the same time, something which augured fairly well for reproductive health. But having done all this, I would say the most path-breaking change that took place was when the government of India decided to have, and I am not a supporter of the government of India, no matter what the political party may be at power, but I do tend to be unbiased, and I try and be a little balanced in what I say. This was a great step. The EAG states were carved out. EAG, as you know, are the old Bimaru plus Assam, and they actually accounted for the population ranging, depends which state you include or exclude, but it's about 48% of the population, some say even above 50% when you take Assam. So to carve out for these 7-8 states a completely focused action, which Mr. Nanda has not referred to, he was the secretary when it happened, was, I think, a phenomenal change. Second, health and family welfare were merged. That was one of the best things that could have happened, because in a way, health stopped talking only about communicable diseases and All India Institute of Medical Sciences and was forced to look at issues which went beyond those kinds of priorities. And the third thing that happened was NRHM came. NRHM has had a lot of baggage of scams. It has had a bad name in many states, but if you look at the figures, I would say it is for the first time a stupendous success, because under the umbrella of JSY and the institutional deliveries, one was able to bring down MMR, bring down TFR, bring down IMR, under 5 mortality, and whatever one may say about the philosophy of a happy family and a nice family, let me say, unless a country pays attention to these indices, we are sunk. We cannot afford not to look at these indices, and those indices have improved. They've improved so much that we can, as Mr. Nanda said, look forward to reaching replacement levels much earlier than was projected by demographers. And in a way, stabilization could also ensue much faster. I don't want to say that my talk was really on which strategies helped. I would say the strategies which helped the most was bringing NRHM, bringing the focus on institutional deliveries. Within that, antenatal care mattered. Within that, trying to give advice on contraception when the woman is in the hospital, improving nutrition levels, paying attention to reproductive health, all this mattered. But at the end of it, the fact that they came to a hospital and the fact that this was being emergency obstetric care was available, emergency neonatal care was available, not across the board, not as though every state in the country performed well, but when the focus was on the EAG states, and within that about 260 districts, I think that we don't have the benefit of either the next NFHS or the latest DLHS, but we certainly can say from some of the slides, which I'll share with you very, very rapidly, that the difference has been phenomenal. I want to share this because tomorrow I would be writing a paper making this theory, and if there are any people who dispute it and say it is nonsense, this is the time, and maybe I'll spend a little time in the next couple of sessions. I would like a feedback from any of you to say you're talking nonsense, because that is the guidance that I look for. So with that, I'll just show you a few slides which are not in any particular order, so it's not like a presentation. Sorry, how does this work? Yeah. Now let's look at the trend of maternal mortality. As you can see how much the maternal mortality has plateaued out. It has come down substantially, and you can see the downfall in the later years being much sharper. The question is it something that is going to plateau out and remain there? Because in that case, we are not improving. And as I show in the last slide, you see where Sri Lanka is and see where we are, and we'd see how much longer we have to go. Look at the trend of infant mortality rate in the EAG states. Now, the one to the left shows you the trend from 1961 to 2001. That is the left side as you look at it. And on the right side, as you look at it, you can see 1961 to 2001. So you can see that there is a much sharper kind of a drop in the latter part for the same states. Let's look at under 5 mortality. Again, you can see a sharp decline and a plateauing nowadays. As you look at the figure 2013, it is somewhat plateauing out. You look at trend of total fertility rate in the EAG states, you have 1970-72. That is in your left slide. The topmost is the 1972 figures, and the bottom of the first slide, as the slide comes down, it comes to 97-99 period. So you can see that the total fertility rate was coming down, but it was, except for Bihar, which is inexplicable. I'm sure the demographers would be able to explain why there was this L-shaped movement in Bihar. But otherwise, everybody was coming down, but it wasn't sort of as sharp as one suddenly sees in the latter part of the second slide, which is 2006 to 2013. So you can see over there how much the TFR and the EAG, I'm only showing you EAG states, has suddenly come down very sharply. I have the figures for all states, and but I don't think I have the time to mention which states is which color. I know, I'm sorry you can't see it. Now this is trend of the age of marriage, another very important determinant. And age of marriage, DLHS 1 to 2, you can see the top slides, and you can see DLHS 1 to 2, and then below that, the age of marriage has been given according to what it is. Now, if you look at age of marriage, DLHS 1 and 2 and 3, the green ones are the DLHS 3. So there is a small decline coming around, but it's not so sharp. But if you look at the present situation, if you look at the age of marriage now, you can see that it's gone up to 20. In the case of Chhattisgarh, it's gone to Odisha, has gone up to almost 22. The Madhya Pradesh has done quite well. The only states which have really not done well among EAG, not that well, they have improved, is Rajasthan and Jharkhand. Even Jharkhand has done not so badly. Now you come to the trend of contraceptive prevalence in the DLHS 1, 2, and 3, and you do see that the male sterilization, that is the green, if you look at the green chart of that's the last DLHS, you can see that in some states it went up, something like Chhattisgarh went and had an upward swing, Uttarakhand had an upward swing, but otherwise it's more or less, almost non-existent. Female sterilization continues to be the dominant method. Condoms went up in Uttarakhand, but that's a very small proportion. The oral pill went up in Odisha, which is remarkable. But otherwise, we seem to be stuck with sterilization, female sterilization. Now, the trend of institutional delivery is what I want to bring you to, which is, I think, the burden of my song today, which is that during DLHS 1 and 2, which is the top chart, you can see that the blue is supposed to be DLHS 1, the dark blue, the light blue is DLHS 2. So you can see institutional delivery is going up. And then you come to institutional deliveries between 2 and 3, that is up to 2007-8, which is part of the NRHM and the focus on EAG. And you can see that the light blue is going up in 3 states very substantially. Those states were Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, and Rajasthan. Others also went up, but these were quite remarkable. And the percentage distribution of institutional delivery, this I'll skip because which hospital they went to is not important for my hypothesis. The trend of institutional deliveries in numbers now, if you look at what is happening, you can see that for every state, the institutional deliveries from 2007 to 2014 are going up, but in the case of Uttar Pradesh, it is quite remarkable. In the case of Bihar, it's really most remarkable and requires some commentary that why has it taken this parabola in the middle and again started rising? That's another question mark. But everybody went up, there's no doubt about it, but not as much as one saw in the earlier years. The unmet need between 1, 2, and 3, well, you know it, but the DLHS 3 is the green one, and obviously the unmet need has come down, which is a good thing. How much, I'm not going into. Now, I want to come straight to the hypothesis I was making, that the one thing that seems to have had an effect on, if you remember, I showed you the MMR, I showed you the IMR, I showed you under 5 mortality, and I showed you the whole picture of TFR. All this was possible because of focused attention. Within that, lots of things would have happened. It is for research to bring out what was the factor. Was it contraception? Was it pushing up age of marriage? Was it antenatal care? What was it? Was it emergency care in the hospital? No study seemed to have brought out these differences, which is important. But having said that, I would say the focus needs to continue. Lastly, I want to show you that the maternal mortality rate, according to the UNICEF and SRS data, which the UNFPA was very kind enough to give me, you can see that, well, let's look at SRS. Well, according to SRS, MMR has come down to 167. That's remarkable because at the beginning of the century, we were nowhere. We wouldn't have expected it. But if you compare with Bangladesh, which is a much poorer country, you look at Indonesia, which probably achieved this many years ago, we are doing well, but if you look, those figures are obviously not SRS figures. So we are somewhere little better off now than Bangladesh and Indonesia, which is something to celebrate. We were not that for many, many years. But Sri Lanka is at 35. We have a very long way to go. You look at IMR and the same thing happens. Sri Lanka is at 8. And whether you look at SRS or you look at UNICEF data, World Bank data, you have 41 and 40 for India. So we have done very, very well in the last few years, but nowhere near where we need to reach. And finally, you have the total fertility rate, and you can see that according to SRS, we are at 2.3, and according to the figures of the World Bank and other UN agencies, we are at 2.5. We have still a long way to go compared to Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. Not that we can really compare ourselves to those countries. I'm not even attempting to do it. But the point I'm trying to make is that we would have to focus attention, because the woman's health is what matters. Her giving birth to a healthy child is what matters. And one last thought I want to say is, yesterday CNN reported, CNN like BBC, the international one, not the Indian CNN, IBN, that in Colorado, teenage pregnancies, which are completely a different phenomenon in the US, but teenage pregnancies were creating such a problem that they offered free IUDs, and there has plummeted, in no time it has plummeted by 40%. I tried to talk to the additional secretary in the health ministry yesterday. He was good enough to listen to me, who deals with NRHM, and I suggested, suppose, and I did it in GSK, incentives is one word, but giving a certain kind of, you might say, encouragement is a totally different thing. In GSK, we had given incentives to those who were able to marry after 19, who produced the first child after 21, and those who produced the first child, the second child 3 years later. They were incentivized, and they were not, nobody was told that they won't get facilities, or they were not targeted, they were not disincentivized. It worked. It worked very well in states like Nabarangpur, districts like Nabarangpur, Dholpur, the Rajnandgaon. These are very, very poor districts. My suggestion to the additional secretary was, which I will put in my paper, I would very much appreciate somebody telling me I'm wrong, because before putting it in writing, one should have a little advice. If Colorado could do this, why can't India, in the EAG states, in the poorest of the districts, say, get married, we will not push you that you must marry after 18, because we know what happens culturally and traditionally. That's not health ministry's baby in any case. It is a women and child effort, and no government is pushing it. But suppose you say you've got married, if you can ward off the first child till you are 20, you will be incentivized at 20. You'll be given this post office savings certificate, encashable after 5 years. And you offer the IUD as a protection, because the man is not going to use the condom, the woman is not going to use the pill, you're going to have a pregnancy within 9 months. It's a voluntary thing. You don't have to force anybody. I have a feeling that if it worked in Colorado for totally different reasons, here it will work because you're giving them some kind of encouragement. Uttardayitva, matritva, pitritva would be the thing, because the woman's health matters, because the child's health matters, not because population matters. Janasankhya is not the issue, it's the health of the woman and the child. With that background, if government were to push this, I think a little add-on can also piggyback on NRHM, and maybe we can still see something little more than the plateauing out that seems to be now happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Srimati Chanda. You have provided a rich source of information. And your last suggestion is again very worth seriously considering. But I would like to extend it. Why only to those states? Because it is not, I suppose, confined to only selected states, this problem. It is confined to all states, certain communities, certain income groups. So why not to carry it to the national level? And again, this will strengthen my argument. Save money from family planning department and bring it to this kind of innovative schemes, rather than having a routine bureaucracy department expenditures. That will be worth. Okay, thank you very much. Now I shall request Ms. Frederica Mayer to deliver the keynote address.
Distinguished people on the dais, people in the hall, distinguished students, researchers, everyone, distinguished friends. I see several friends here in the audience. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to speak on this important occasion. I must say it's always quite difficult to speak after Dr. Nanda, who's a little bit my guru on learning everything about India and the population issues. Dr. Shalila, I haven't met you very often, but it was a pleasure to listen to you as well. And I must say, I'm heading UNFPA over the last 4 years, and it's really a pleasure to listen to the kind of change which I hear today here on this stage. I wish this was the whole of India, in fact. Maybe we are a very select public here advocating for a very select issue. Because over the last few years, we always saw during World Population Day, there's really a drive to meet the targets on sterilization. I hope this year it will be a little bit less than other years. And this year, luckily, we haven't seen this strong push to meet the targets, what we have seen all other years. It's not yet World Population Day, which is on the 11th. But let's hope we continue on this thread of not going for the population targets. By the way, I've brought a booklet about myths and misconceptions about family planning and targets. There are a few there. If you want more, you can contact UNFPA. And it really spells out all the myths and misconceptions which was produced in earlier years. My speech is a little bit different from the former ones. They are focused very much on reproductive health and family planning. I would like to focus a little bit on, because the subject was demographic challenges in India, current scenario and future directions, I would like to focus much more on the demographic dividend. And it was already said by a few earlier ones, so that's the focus of my discussion. So in my address, I would like to focus on the importance of demographic challenge and opportunity, the so-called demographic dividends, which means economic growth potential that can result from shifts in population age structure, mainly when the share of working age population is larger than the non-working share of population. In other words, a boost in economic productivity that occurs when there are growing numbers of people in the workforce relative to the number of dependents. And this is especially for the students to get it right. So a demographic dividend is not automatic. It only occurs if countries make time-bound investments to empower, to educate and employ their young people before they enter the workforce, and ensure an investment climate and labor policies to expand and sustain safe and secure employment. It occurs in countries that ensure equality of opportunities and of outcomes, which is the basis for sustained individual well-being and inclusive economic growth. India currently has 358 million young people, which is approximately similar to the whole of the United States. It's the largest generation ever the country has seen. Today, India's population is composed of more working age people than ever before, both in absolute numbers as in proportion of the total population, accounting for more than half of all Indians. And with these trends, there is a huge potential for social and economic gains. But India stands on the threshold. It needs to accelerate efforts to reap the demographic dividend, to expand economic growth and development. And while the world's second most populous country is making steady progress, it should further invest in young people to take advantage of its demographic window of opportunity. In order for India to capitalize on the demographic dividend, investment must be made in empowering, providing them with life skills so they can take the right decisions in their lives. Educating them. Currently, 32 million enroll in class 1, but only 8 million complete schooling. Therefore, it's very important that we have to invest in education. And I was happy that Minister Sisodia was stressing this point. However, it was a little bit in Hindi, but my neighbor told me it was really about more investment in education and more investment in health. And we need to employ the young people. The nation's useful demographic structure means that more than 12 million people will join the working age population every year in the next decade. So the opportunity is enormous. The cohort of young people currently moving into the 15 to 64 age bracket will increase India's working population age to a staggering of 908 million people by 2020. And the demographic window is expected to last until 2040. If these youth have access to quality education, health services, and job opportunities, this trillion-dollar economy will grow much larger. Some countries in the region, such as Singapore, South Korea, and Thailand, have already tapped into their demographic dividend, and they have done very well. They invested in quality education and the health of their young people and workers, and they ensured inclusive economic growth. A critical foundation of the demographic dividend is ensuring that people have the rights and freedoms to define their life, pursue education and employment, and accrue savings. These rights and freedoms include reproductive rights, freedom from early or forced marriage, and the right to choose the number and the spacing of their children. Families should be able to balance work and family life and ensure the well-being of their children. By promoting gender equality, girls will stay in schools, labor force expands, and young people carry forward values of mutual trust and respect of the next generation. However, according to NFHS 3, 47% of girls get married before the age of 18. And we are looking forward to the data of NFHS 4, who will hopefully give a very new figure. And Madam Shaila, when I saw your figures about child marriage, I was wondering, are they disaggregated by sex? And also because your data...
Only female.
Only female.
Yes.
Okay, good. So on an average, 9 million girls in the age group of 15 to 19 have either delivered a child or are expecting one. 9 million. Providing access to health services, including reproductive health information and services, is critical. Today, women in India are having fewer babies than ever before, and we heard it before, 2.3 on an average. Given the evident desire for smaller families, the nation should ensure that every woman who wants to plan her family has access to information, counseling, and services. By strengthening and increasing funding to RMNCH&A or National Rural Health Mission or the National Health Mission, India can provide women, men, and young people throughout the nation with universal access to high-quality family planning choices. This is a human right, and it is also an important part of reaping the demographic dividends. Another critical investment is education and training. And as Mr. Bhattacharya said, in fact, education is the best method of family planning. A demographic dividend depends on people generating and capitalizing on new opportunities and new information-based economies. National policies that ensure lifelong access to education, universal and of high quality, are essential to give workers the skills and expertise to work productively in the 21st century. But the demographic dividend can only be realized if healthy, educated young people can find decent jobs and are gainfully employed. Promote high rates of employment that match evolving skills and resources through public and private partnerships that can spur the growth of entrepreneurship and industry. It is therefore of critical importance that we invest in the well-being of adolescents and youth, as well as unhindered access to information, education, including comprehensive sexuality education and services. And their full right to participate in decision-making are most critical to ensure that they have the capabilities and opportunities to define their productive and creative lives and spur the innovations needed for a sustainable future. Investment in young women and adolescent girls are particularly critical as they face more obstacles than young men and boys in building their capabilities, seizing opportunities, and enjoying their rights. India has the right analytics. It has the right political commitments to reap a valuable demographic dividend. And by rapidly empowering, educating, and employing young and working-age population throughout the country, India will reap an economic and social dividend. that will benefit current and future generations. For the future generations, 2015 is a crucial year in which the world will decide a new development agenda. In fact, next week there is a conference on financing for development in Addis Ababa, where the world will decide how much we are going to invest in all the development issues, how much we are going to invest in the unfinished ICPD agenda. Let's hope the country are putting the right thing forward. So, in my view, prioritizing investment in and participation of youth and adolescents is a critical component of a transformative, equitable, and sustainable future agenda. Let's work together to create a world we want. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I think we have exceeded the time scheduled for the inaugural session, but since there are three very learned speakers, I think it has been worth the time. What I'll do is cut short the chairman's remarks 10 minutes to maybe 1 minute, save a few minutes, and hope the organizers, you can squeeze the tea and lunch time, and then be able to make up for this. My first comment is to repeat what I've said in the beginning itself. Yes, we still need to do more research on the population behavior. PRC of IG has collected in the past, if I recall, voluminous data. Some of them may be relooked into and compared with the present scenario to know how you looked in the population 20, 30, 40 years ago and how it has evolved now, and draw some lessons. Most of the time we look forward without looking back. In JNU, while I was the Vice Chancellor, we created the data bank of Registrar General Census, which I hope is functioning well. It is time PRC takes initiative. Maybe if the ministry, some ministry gives you special grants, and PRC can, it's one of the oldest and the best known PRC centers in the country. So I hope that the tradition of doing good quality research work will continue. Yes, most of the speakers have highlighted, and I fully endorse, we don't need to bother too much about the number of people living. What we need to bother about the quality of the people living, standard of living, and quality of life. So the stress has to shift away from numbers to the quality, and the policies may be accordingly redesigned. That itself will reach dividend. We have known already in India, states and communities where education, health program has been extensive, automatically the population growth has been voluntarily restrained. And this is a universal result. This is not a result of India alone. So with these words, let me thank all the distinguished participants and hope the remaining sessions, I saw many of the technical papers, will elaborate on some of these things. And thank you all for bearing with us.
Thank you, Professor Bhattacharya, for conducting the session so well. And thank you, Shelja ma'am, Federica ma'am, Nanda sir, for your thought-provoking address. It sets a perfect platform for our seminar. Now, we would like to present mementos to all our distinguished guests as a token of appreciation. I request Mr. Suresh Sharma, head of our PRC department, to present mementos to our honorable guests. First, Ms. Shelja Chandra. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your words. Shri A.R. Nanda ji. Thank you so much. Professor B.B. Bhattacharya. Thank you, sir. Federica ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And our Honorable Director, Professor Manoj Panda. Thank you, sir, for your motivation for the seminar. Now, Ms. Shruti Pandey, on behalf of PRC Department, will give the vote of thanks.
Good morning to all of you. I feel honored and privileged to get this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks in the inaugural session of the seminar. So I, on behalf of PRC, Institute of Economic Growth, and my own behalf, convey deep regards and warm thanks to Honorable Deputy Chief Minister Srimani Sisodia ji for gracing the inaugural ceremony, and we are also very encouraged by his gracious presence and extremely benefited by his inspiring address. We wish to express our profuse thanks to Honorable Professor B.B. Bhattacharya for chairing the inaugural session. We are also extremely grateful to Sri A.R. Nanda and Madam Salja Chandra for expressing their views in the area of demography and health, which is very informative for developing further research ideas. We are also grateful to our Miss Federica Mayer for her keynote address. It was very well delivered by her. And a special thanks to Professor Manoj Panda, Director IG, for encouragement, guidance, and providing stimulating environment for such an educational development program. We also wish to express our sincere thanks and deep regards to Dr. Suresh Sharma for coming up with such an enriching idea and organizing this informative event. Now, the most important, a special and warm thanks to all research staff, all staff from computer unit, from finance, from library and administrative unit of IG, and all the IG staff for their dedication and extensive support. Our sincere thanks to media. Also, we are extremely grateful to ICSSR for providing funding for this seminar. At the end, we once again thanks to all honorable guests and participants for their presence in this inaugural session. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shruti. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now take a break for tea and come back here sharply in 15 minutes, around 11:45. We are running short of time, so please be on time.